Okay, this is lesson 8, part 1 for measurement, and we're going to be working with tolerance. So when building or assembling any object from a simple bookcase to a complex computer, you must take measurements. Your measurements should always be as accurate as possible, and they should be precise enough for the needs of the project. When manufacturing a product, a range of sizes is often acceptable, and we've looked at max and min. For example, if you are making a mortise and tenon joint as shown in the diagram below, the tenon needs to be small enough to fit in the mortise, but large enough that it will not fall out. The range in acceptable values is called a tolerance. The tolerance is determined by subtracting the minimum acceptable value from the maximum value. And the target value, usually halfway between the minimum and maximum, is called the nominal. So we've already been working with the nominal when you guys were doing like measurement plus or minus uncertainty. And manufacturing tolerance can be written in 4 ways. You write the maximum value over top of the minimum. That's first style. Number 2, you write the nominal value plus or minus half the tolerance. Minimum value, you put the plus the tolerance minus 0, because you can't go any lower than the minimum, but you can go above, right? Maximum, plus 0, because you can't go any higher than the maximum, but minus the tolerance because you could go below. So that's the third. So these two here would be 3 and 4. So you'll need to know all 4 of those. So example 2. Mackenzie is making caramel candies. The recipe says to use a candy thermometer to monitor the temperature of the sugar mixture. If it is not heated enough, the candies will not hold their shape, and if it is heated too much, the candies will be too firm. The sugar mixture must be heated to between 245 and 250. A, what is the temperature tolerance of the sugar mixture? And B, write the acceptable temperature range in each of the 4 ways that we looked at above. So, solution. To get the tolerance is the difference between the maximum and minimum values. So if your maximum is 250, your minimum is 245, the tolerance is 5 degrees. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then B, write the acceptable temperature range in each of the 4 ways shown above. Okay, so the acceptable temperature range in the form max over min, you put the maximum temp, minimum. And that's it, that's number 1. To write it in the form nominal plus or minus half the tolerance, you need to calculate half the tolerance, and this is called the plus or minus range. Okay? So if you take your tolerance, divide it by 2, and get 2.5. Okay? You also need to calculate the nominal value, which is the middle. So to do this, add the maximum and minimum values and divide by 2. Now, sometimes you can just figure it out without doing these steps. You just find the midway point between 250 and 245. That's all that really is. Okay? But this formula here will work every time. So 250 plus 245, and the order that you add those in doesn't matter. Divide it by 2, and you get 247.5. And what that means is if you have your minimum and your maximum, halfway between is 247.5. Okay? And then what this plus or minus half the tolerance, well, if our tolerance was 5 degrees, because between 245 and 250 is tolerance, what they're saying is when you go to write it like this down here, it's just covering all the way up to the max. So if I add 2.5, I will get to here. If I subtract from here 2.5, I will get to here. So it covers the entire tolerance. Okay. in the form minimum value. So plus the tolerance minus 0. So again, what we're doing is we're just taking this bottom piece here, 245, and we're saying minus 0 means you can't go any lower, but plus 5 because we could go all the way up to 250. And then for the maximum way, you write the max plus 0 because you can't go any higher, minus 5, and that would cover all the way down to 245. And that is the end of lesson 8, part 1.